Hey everyone, welcome to the UVD Weekly Wrap Up. This is your host, Travis Likens, and I have some exciting news to report first. We now have sponsors. First up, I'd like to thank Strange Cat Toys for signing up to be a sponsor, our friends in Chicago, Gallery F, the one and only Martian Toys, and Chicago-based Rotofugi. So thanks guys for coming to our call and joining on as sponsors. If you would like to join on as a sponsor, you can always sign up by emailing us over at urbanvinyldaily@gmail.com, and we can get you all the information you need to become one of our sponsors. But why I'm here today is because we have another special episode where we're talking to the one and only Scott Kinnebrew, aka Forces of Dorkness. How's it going, Scott?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. How about yourself? So
doing pretty good.
So yeah, I hear you're traveling around. You're in New York right now, which is not your home base, but glad you could take the time to talk with us and talk about some upcoming stuff that you got going on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
So I guess first up, we'll give you the chance to talk about some big news that you have going on at, is it Guzu Gallery? Is that how you say that?
Yeah, Guzu Gallery. It's part of a big complex in Austin. It's Austin Books and Comics. They've got an action figure store that's all vintage stuff, and then they've got like a collector's grade store that's like cells and inked pages and that kind of stuff from comic books. It's just kind of a neat area in Austin. But Guzu is their art gallery / Japanese toy / blind box / vinyl store.
/ soon to be Forces of Dorkness solo show, right?
Yeah, I'm currently, I've done a lot of group shows with them over the years, and there's one going on right now that's called Blast Off. It's a sci-fi themed show, and I did a resin Ming the Merciless for that show. So mine's going to move in right as soon as that one's over. And yes, it's my first solo show in Texas or at home for that matter.
That's pretty awesome, and it's great when an artist can do something close to home, and they can hopefully, I'm sure you're going to be in attendance, so people can meet you and talk to you and talk about the work that you've created. So not to get too far ahead without announcing that it is called Fantastic Universe. It's at Guzu Gallery.
Yes.
And it takes place starting October 14th from 7 to 10 p.m. with an opening reception. And you told me a few minutes ago there's exciting news that there's a live music event going on. You want to expand on that a little bit, Scott?
Yeah, the show as a whole I've been working on for, I guess, a little over a year now. It's part of the reason why I've been so quiet on social media and that kind of stuff. I think I'm somewhere around 83 pieces right now.
Wow, that's a lot.
For the show. The focus of it is things that I think would exist in outer space, and not necessarily planets and those kinds of things, just creatures that are floating around in the endless black void kind of area. As part of that, I made some music. It's one of the things that I used to do before art became such a focus in my life, but I thought I'd bring it out again. So it's electronic-y, poppy kind of stuff that I'll be performing during the opening on the 14th.
Very cool. And let's see, the show goes through November 1st. So if you happen to be in the Austin area during that time frame, make sure to stop in, check this show out. Lots of cool stuff from the sounds of it, lots of it to look at. And I really love that character that is on the flyer. It's like a cheeseburger alien looking guy. Is he going to be maybe in resin or something?
No, he's an actual painting himself.
Very cool.
He was one of the first ones that I did when I started working on this thing. I tried to stay away from actual pop culture references as far as I could. If they pop into some of the pieces, it's totally by accident, and you're seeing something that I probably didn't mean to do. But yeah, it's all two-dimensional art at this one. I didn't do any figures, which in itself was a difficult decision to make because I do so many of them.
Yeah.
Really kind of at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So,
but it's probably good considering the next little bit of news is that you have a lot of great pieces that are getting ready to release at NYCC. So
yeah, I'm teaming up this year with Tenacious Toys, he's been fantastic to me for as long as I've been doing this whole toy thing. I've got a piece in the Resin is King series There will also be a golden ticket in one of my pieces that will give you some additional playset items. The piece I'm doing for that one is called the Cauldron of Darkness.
Which
and
is
it's
kind
a
of
little,
like a little pimp cup almost, or a
yeah,
chalice.
it's like a shot glass. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a little. I mean, it's something you'd find in like a wizard's realm or something,
Yeah.
but it's super small because of the specifications of the series. So that's a blast. All the artists in that one, Jacob Jams is in it. Taylor Curiosities is in it as well. A lot of cool people are in that one. And then I'm doing Bart 2D2, which I'm still working on. I should finish it up next weekend. Tenacious is also doing a bit show from Luke Chu that I'll have a custom in.
Yep, I've seen a couple of teasers popping up from that, so that'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, that's the ones that I'm seeing teasers of as well seem cool. So yeah, another cool group to be a part of. And then I've got this other resin figure that I'll be releasing that I don't think anybody's seen yet. It's kind of based loosely on the Lego Man figure, but it's He-Man sized, so 7 inches or so.
Man, that's a big one.
I did some sculpting on the face. It's going to have this weird metallic color shifting paint scheme and somewhere in the metal punk rock kind of realm of things. So yeah, some fun releases.
So
and I'll be there.
And he'll be there. So make sure.
Yeah, and I'll be at Comic-Con as well.
Yeah, so make sure to stop by booth 309 and check out everything that Tenacious Toys has to offer, but specifically everything that Scott has to offer. One question I did have about the Bootleg Bart. Is that going to come on a card, or is that a like a bag type figure?
No, I'm going to bag it. I love all the header card, or the full-on, like, the old-school Star Wars kind of cards, backing cards with the bubbles and stuff. I'm a bag guy at the end of the day. I want you to pull it out. And I also am a reverse bag guy. I like to put the zipper on the bottom.
Yeah.
That way you can pull the toy out and hang it up and do whatever you want to with it.
I was talking to Brian Ewing, the artist, and he said it's it's like punk rock when it's still in the bag and header card. If it's in a box, it's not punk rock anymore.
People are trying to make their stuff production quality, and I'm all down with that. I mean, I've got some stuff from Jason Chalker that's just freaking amazing and looks like it should have come out of a toy store.
Yep.
But it's just not the way that I roll. I do everything as far as my packaging and stuff goes at the house. So if I can't run it through a printer and use it, it's not happening. And those nice cards are just, you got to go out and get those made.
Yeah, you almost have to go to like Sidekick Labs or somewhere and get those made. Or,
totally.
Or some other printer, but he just does a good job,
Totally. I mean, the work I've seen out there is fantastic.
So what made you mash up the worlds of Star Wars and The Simpsons? We don't see a lot of people doing that, so thought it'd be cool to explore your mind
there. Yeah, I did the Simpsons thing with He-Man, I guess a year or so ago when I did He-Maggie.
Yep.
And I got the same comments. Nobody's mashing up He-Man and The Simpsons. And honestly, at the end of the day, I enjoy The Simpsons, but I am by no means a Simpsons like uber fan.
Yeah.
I don't own Simpsons stuff. I don't like have Homer socks or Simpsons boxers or any of that kind of stuff. I think the only thing I really have is like an old Simpsons chess set from like the 90s.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same way. Like I enjoy the show, but I'm not like obsessed with it. Like it's not something that I'm going to go out and buy a ton of stuff from it. But I feel like it kind of it embodies like two major properties that were during the 80s and kind of puts them together and makes like an interesting take on this is something like two pieces separated together. It's something that somebody might have plopped together back in the 80s when they were a kid too, because like they're things that could have been around.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes with me, it's the name first.
Yeah.
Then it's the concept of, okay, will that be funny or not? Because Lisa C3PO or Lisa 3PO doesn't work as well as Mark 2D2 does.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way it rolls off your tongue. The other one that I was playing around with but never ended up doing was Will-E. So a Wally body with Willie's head on top of it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, But I don't. I mean, it's okay. So not only do I have to have people that are fans of the groundskeeper on The Simpsons, but then I've got to have people that are fans of
Disney Pixar,
the Disney robot movie.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's easier to just say, okay,
Yeah,
Star Wars,
definitely at like
what's going to work.
definitely at the Comic-Con too, because I mean it's you kind of got that crossover where there'll be people there for The Simpsons and there'll be people there for the Star Wars stuff, and there's a collection.
Totally.
And there's a historical collector of bootleg Bart things. That's kind of been a thing for the last 30 years or so, however long Simpsons have been going on. And there's a bootleg Star Wars collector out there, so it's kind of a mix of a perfect storm almost.
Yeah, the bootleg Star Wars one amazes me, and it still amazes me every day how much of it is out there.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, there really aren't a lot of figures that people want to see bootleg.
Yeah.
But the people like Healy that do the mashups with them and do such a fantastic job of making molds and casting them. Some of the work out there is just amazing that people are doing. And it's fun because it's stuff that you can't buy off the shelf.
Yeah. And like a lot of times, like even when you yourself did a lot of stuff involving Star Wars within your resin releases and whatnot, like the Buddha Fett or Our Lady of Immaculate Rebellion or the Passion of the Wookiee or Pope Solo, you were taking more of the concept of Star Wars and mixing it with something else, of religion in this case. So you weren't just like straight bootlegging it. You were making a comment to the fact that like Star Wars is kind of a religion to some people. And I always thought that was a very interesting take that you took on it, instead of just slapping it on like, here's a bootleg Luke and slapping it on a card with a funny picture. You were turning the piece itself into social commentary on Star Wars.
I mean, I think, especially things like Star Wars, Harry Potter's the same way, Lord of the Rings is the same way. I mean, there's those super uber franchises that people just, they just attach to. Star Wars happens to be the one that grabbed me when I was 3 years old. And it's still, it's funny because it's hard for me to do it because it's Star Wars and I appreciate it for what it is. But then it's like fan art to me. It's something that I'm also passionate about. And I see people that believe in the Force and Star Wars and stuff just as much as any Catholic believes in Jesus.
Yep.
And they're out there.
And there's people that know the story and all the facets of it, including like the now non-canon books and stuff like that. They know it just like somebody would know the Bible back and forth, and it's pretty crazy, the following that is created over the past, 30 years or so. But it's exciting to me, at least. I haven't asked you on this, but it's exciting to me to see it kind of passing down with the new movies and the new books and everything as well. Like it's kind of taken on a whole new thing now that they've canonized a lot of stuff. And I think it's interesting to see what they're doing with it.
Yeah, no, I do too. And honestly, as a kid who fell in love with it and had to wait years and years and years to get any more Star Wars, I'm getting it every year now, and I'm as excited as can be. I'd like to go back and tell my 8-year-old self, at some point in your life, you're going to get to watch a new Star Wars movie every year. Even the Bible can't give you that. Yep. They're not giving you new stories every day.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same stories, But even for me, because I wasn't born until the late '80s, so Star Wars to me started out on the Muppet Babies. I don't know if you ever watched that show when you were a kid.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And they would have the little clips from Star Wars, and I just remember thinking what's that? I don't know what that is.
Right.
And then the special editions hit me at like that 9, 10, 11-year-old age. And it was like, holy crap, this is the coolest thing ever. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's prequels. Like, oh, this is awesome too. Right. So there's more for me. So even though I don't necessarily like the prequels that much, I think I have a different view than somebody that was say 25 or 30 when those movies came out, just because it hit me at a different age than, somebody that was older. And looking back on them, I'm like, well, yeah, there's some really stupid things. They could have did this and could have did that. But there's still a little soft spot in my heart for some of those movies. Not specifically Attack of Clones. I really hate that one, but that's just me.
I'm a fan to an extent of everything. Sometimes it's just because it exists. I appreciate the prequels because it's a definitive time in special effects in the movie industry as well.
Yep.
While those were going on, and that's the other thing about the Star Wars movies. They've always pushed new technologies in movie making.
Yeah, they were definitely they were on the forefront.
Totally, and then they've always been that company that makes new software, new audio stuff, and new, whatever it is that they're a new way to draw on a piece of film or whatever it is that they're wanting to do to make the movie experience even cooler. And, though Jar Jar Binks and those kinds of things irritate the shit out of everybody, it's still pretty cool the fact that, fake people can exist on film.
Yeah, and the fact that wasn't he the the first fully CG character to be like a main character throughout an entire movie? Isn't that a true statement?
Yeah, and as much as people complain about him, I went and saw the World of Warcraft movie just to see the CGI.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't. It was. I don't even know how to compare it to other films, but visually it was amazing. I mean, like the things I got to see in it were really neat.
Yeah, truthfully, looking back at Jar Jar, specifically, there are movies that come out today that the CGI does not look as good as Jar Jar did in that movie.
Totally agree.
I look at sometimes I'm like what? You shouldn't have did a movie this crazy if you didn't have the budget to have CG of the level that you needed it. So there are things I like to commend for those movies, even though the storyline isn't always the best. And a lot of people don't agree with me on this either, but they were having to play connect the dot storytelling, which is never compelling. Because they're working towards something. And you're always like, well, when's this going to happen? So.
Yeah, agree.
So I think they were kind of set up for failure from the beginning. But this is a whole nother Star Wars discussion. So dragging it back to the art world. So recently we found out that you were nominated for Best Custom in the DTA panel. For the DTA panel voting stuff. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nuts.
So,
especially after the comments that I've made over the years.
Yeah.
And my feelings on the DTAs themselves. I think the easiest thing for me to say is that I appreciate the fact that they have become less popular vote as a whole. And honestly, the category that I've been thrown in and the people that I'm part of a list of 9 is relatively mind-blowing for me. It's interesting to see me put next to people like John Paul Kaiser. And people, it's weird.
That Attack on Titan piece that's in there too. That thing is insane.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I
love the Luke Chu piece that it started as.
Yeah, that too. I had just never seen. I had somehow missed that piece and never seen it. And I was like, "Holy crap! The sculpting on that is insane."
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah,
and you know what? I think one of the things that I think makes the quality of customs that have been coming out lately is the quality of pieces that people can customize now.
That too.
The pieces in the industry are way better than they were 5 years ago. I mean, some of the stuff that I used to customize was just crap. They would fall apart when you try and cut things out. I mean, I'm not going to point any fingers in specific pieces, but stuff has gotten way better, I've noticed.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, some pieces people really didn't expect people to customize, so they weren't really made to be taken apart and things like that. But now I think people think about that while they're designing the figure is, we're going to probably have some customs, or people are going to want to customize this and turning it into something. And they kind of design around that a little bit. I'm kind of, we designed Luna, and I'm kind of interested to see what people will do with it once it gets out in the wild. But I do kind of worry about when people have to take it apart with the antlers. That's what I'm most worried about. So we'll see what happens once people get it, but hopefully people figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of doing this is learning what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
I've destroyed multiple possibilities with customs because I went beyond what the figure itself could handle structurally.
Yeah. Well, and you were for a while creating things like lamps out of designer toys, so you were like pushing the limit, like further than anybody really else that I really was paying attention to. I don't think I know anybody else that made a lamp.
Yeah, I mean, like Matt Anderson did some stuff for a while where he was doing like fiber optic battery powered stuff, but he was doing it in resin because you need it to be clear so you can see stuff glowing.
Yep. And Task was doing that as well in resin.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of it is just hoping that what your idea is works. Yeah. I mean, because a lot of the time they don't. I mean, you put all this time into it, you get all this stuff ready, and you put it all together, and it just collapses in on itself.
Yep. A lot of it's trial and error.
Totally. And because there is, I mean, I think there's more and more things coming out. Here's how you make a toy. Here's how you customize. I mean, there's almost a YouTube video for everything at this point. But I by no means was at this in the beginning of the whole toy scene, but I've had to learn everything on my own, I felt.
Yep. And like the thing is too, like, so, you know, we're kind of at the learning production and learning all this kind of stuff. And it's like little things you don't think about, like, oh, well, duh, if I was trying to make a pin or a patch, like, yeah, they can't do that because of the limitations from the production facility or whatever. And I'm sure you're running into that with the same thing on the customizing side, where it's like, oh, well, the type of material I'm using or something along those lines is just not capable of doing this. So back to the drawing board.
Well, yeah, and I work with weird materials. Sometimes I do fur, I do leather, I do like I've started working with some of the costume stuff, like Warbla, which is like a heat flexible kind of plastic sheet that you can turn into armor and those kinds of things. It's what a lot of the big effects guys use. So it's fun working with other stuff, but it's expensive when you screw up.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like when I first started casting resin, I threw away so much silicone because I just didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't get the mold pour right, couldn't get the right holes in them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, at the end of the day, the materials themselves are not cheap.
Yep. That's always been one of those things that kind of kept me from ever trying to cast resin myself. I was like, well, I'm going to spend a ton of money and a ton of time learning how to do this, and I could probably just help artists, you know, promote their stuff a lot better.
So, yeah. Well, and in the industry as a whole, we appreciate people like you guys. I mean, that pay attention to and care and foster and help promote.
Yep. You
know, people that are out there. I mean, because we're all spread out so far and wide. I mean, there's groups of people in New York and there's groups of people out in LA, but for the most part, the rest of us are just kind of scattered all over the United States.
Yeah, we're just kind of sprinkled throughout the middle.
Yeah. So it's good to have people like you guys and, you know, some of the other groups out there that really kind of get behind the artists as a whole, regardless of where we're from or what we're doing. You know, you guys recognize quality work, and we appreciate it.
Yep. And like, I just always think, you know, because we've been through a lot of change, as listeners and artists probably have noticed. But the thing that I kind of like sat down when we were kind of re-looking at our business model and strategies and whatnot was I've always just wanted to help people, and I want to figure out new ways to help people. So that's only everything we do is to find new ways to help people. And we actually shut down like all our funding sources and everything, like except for the Kickstarter. We had turned off ad money and everything because we couldn't guarantee people we were going to have a great quality product to sell ads to. So now I think we figured it out, and that's why we opened back up to sponsors. But we just want to help people. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
So we just didn't want to take people's money and run with it, you know.
Sure. Yeah. There's plenty of that out there too.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So other back to the art stuff again, though. We have, that was about a month and a half ago. So you were part of the show in New York City that took place called Black Drove, where you released a new, was it a line or was it just 3 resins called Iris, leader of the MIBs? I'm guessing that's Bibs.
The mutants with the irritable bowel syndrome. I got involved with the Black Drove guys, actually Bo, who had me sculpt a piece for him and cast it called Minotaur. I enjoy that 3 1/4 inch figure size, 4 inches. You know, He-Man, GI Joe, basically He-Man size to Star Wars size. I'm down with. So I've been trying to do more original, not specifically part of a pop culture grouping, and Black Drove stuff has been part of that. And Iris was really kind of my first, hey, this is what I want to do as far as new figures go. Because he's in resin, he's painted, he articulates, he's in a bag, he's got a header card.
Yeah, it looked really cool.
I mean, it's a fun piece, and he came out really nice too. I mean, I tried some new things. The actual head part is sculpted separately from the rest of the body, so the teeth can do what they're doing. And,
yeah, I really liked how the teeth fit together in there. It just looks kind of gnarly with those teeth sticking out, you know?
Yeah, and honestly, the grouping, I mean, when I got invited to be in that show, the people that I knew that were going to be in it, I knew that I had to do something that wasn't cutesy and story and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, the guys that like the Sofubi and Kaiju and those, you know, people like all Kaiju kind of stuff and Mutant Vinyl Hardcore and those guys, I had to do something gnarly, and he's my gnarly.
Yep. I think it worked out. And I think really, though, like, you kind of did a similar thing to us where you kind of like you took a step back and looked at what you were creating, and it just seems like you came out with a totally different look, and not look, but a different feel, like a different direction. And I like it. I think it's turned out really good. Because sometimes, you know, people go away and then they come back and you're like, what were you doing while you were gone? But I really like everything that you're kind of doing now. It's different, but not different bad.
I kind of, the way that I feel right now is the last 5 or 6 years that I've been doing this was all kind of prep work for now, for, you know, trying to figure out my style, trying to figure out the way that I want to do things, the way I want things to look. And now it just seems like a way more natural flow when I do stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's always a good thing, because then that's when you usually get the best stuff, because it's easier to come up with ideas because you don't feel like you're chasing something, or, you know, you're really just kind of able to create at that point. You're not just trying to figure everything out, you know?
Right.
So, as far as other things, though, you and I both, we were talking about this earlier, we're both Metallica fans in a way, but we're not very happy with this new song. So I just wanted to kind of tackle a little bit, just kind of talk about kind of where did you first discover Metallica?
I first discovered Metallica at the Texas Jam in 1980. Damn it, now I can't remember. But they played, and it was the Master of Puppets lineup. So Cliff was on board, and I was like 11.
Wow.
And I thought it was one of the coolest things ever. And I went to see Van Halen, I think is why I went to the show, and Metallica was part of the lineup. Like, I wasn't a Metallica fan yet. I was blown away. And then I had a girl that I was friends with whose brother was younger than us that wanted to get into metal. And I said, Master of Puppets on cassette. And she gave it to him, and he hated it. And then she gave it to me. And that was my first, like, owned copy of Metallica, because everything else I had was a copy. And Master of Puppets was great, but the big album for me was Justice, because it came out when I was like 8th grade. Yeah, and I was on vacation in the back of the station wagon with my family.
And it hit,
and like, that was my...
It hit at like the perfect
it was just
time.
Like, yeah, I mean, it was that angsty 14-year-old, I'm sitting in the back of a station wagon driving across America metal album.
So, side story. Actually, the town that I'm from, there was a bar there called the Manhattan, and this was before I was born. But they actually had Metallica there, and it's a little podunk town in the middle of Ohio, right? They actually had Metallica there before they were Metallica. Like, this guy was like, he was like so up on music that he like brought them there and they performed there. And it was like there's like a picture of them up on the wall. Like it was so random. Unfortunately, that bar's not there anymore. But it was like he'd had all kinds of bands come through there like that, and it's just so random that a little podunk town in the middle of Ohio had these people there. You know, before they were famous, but when they were still touring around. You know, so
Yeah, I know and that's part of my day job, my real job.
Yep.
I get to hear a ton of those stories because I work in I guess indirectly I work in the entertainment industry.
Yep.
But I always get to hear about the shows and where people started and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that kind of stuff's rad.
my first experience with Metallica actually is kind of like a love-hate relationship. One of my best friends was in a band that when they first started out, they played Metallica. Like that's how they like learned how to play, was like they just all sat around and played Metallica all the time. And they were like so awesome. They actually won like a statewide battle of the band and everything once they started writing original music, and they got record music, like music time and everything like that to record. But my band wasn't very good. So like I was kind of jealous. So I was like, I don't like Metallica because that's how they learned how to play. And later on in life, I got smarter and realized that no, this is amazing, and it kind of opened the door to all things metal for me. But it's just kind of funny that I had like a love-hate relationship with them when it was first on, just for my own jealousies, you know.
Yeah, no, I would say that Metallica is for sure. They're like the gateway metal band.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because they're
like, if you can make it to Metallica and enjoy Metallica, you can like then take the step to like Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, or Meshuggah.
Because like I feel like they're because like specifically in like the earlier days, I feel like James's voice is much more stomachable than some of the other bands. So it's like easier to like, oh okay, like once you get accustomed to him, then you can accept other people. You know, like
okay,
because he's not screaming.
So which James voice are you speaking of?
I'm talking of early days.
That's part of my problem with the new song.
Yeah, I'm talking early days, James. Like,
okay,
where he's singing, but he's not screaming. You know.
Yeah, the new song I would be totally cool with it being an instrumental.
Yeah, the music itself is awesome. Like, I was like, oh, this song. Like, I just like sit and like play the, you know, like the musical portion. Just kind of like in my brain. It like gets stuck in my brain, and then the words pop in, and I'm like, oh god.
I had great hopes for Death Magnetic.
Yep.
And then I was like, yeah, no, I'm just not into it. And I think a lot of my problem with it nowadays is just the vocal aspect is not there, and I'm wondering if it's because so much of it was driven by Cliff back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Justice good, is it's leftover Cliff, and then the Black Album is like all James, and I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought once they got away from that producer they used for like the 90s through the early 2000s, like things would change. And it seems like it did on the musical side, but I really just kind of wonder if James is out of ideas for as far as like good lyrical quality, like poems, you know, like the stuff that made all those early albums so good. He's just tapped out, you know. I mean, it is 30 years later. So maybe he's
didn't Rick Rubin do Death Magnetic?
I think so. I'd have to go back and look.
Because the way I feel about Rick Rubin is he could put a barbershop quartet in the top 10 on the Billboard at this point in his career.
Yeah,
because he's so good at what he does.
I definitely agree with that. And
well, I say top 10 Billboard. I don't think any barbershop quartet could compete with your pop princes and princesses, but
I will say
in
this,
a musical realm of things, you could maybe get him a Grammy.
I don't know if you're an Eminem guy, though. I don't know if you listened to the Marshall Mathers LP2, which Rick Rubin did most of the producing for it. The one title track that he produced was perfect for the radio, did really good as far as singles or whatnot. But all the stuff on there, they just did not work good together. Like their styles didn't mesh very well, and it just came haphazard and lost, and actually one of my least favorite Eminem albums. So I get what you're saying, because he's kind of like him, Timberland. Those two are like the top examples I have that would just like everybody goes to those people to produce their record, because everything they do just turns to gold as far as on the singles side.
Right.
But I think we're on the
So,
same.
I mean, on the Timberland side of things, he did that whole Chris Cornell thing, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago that I thought, oh, that's, I don't know, it's going to be interesting. Let's see if it works. It just didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, every now and then they just,
I mean,
they just kind of come out with something that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, music.
Oh, music.
And Pickled Mistress.
And it seems like every time I turn around, I'm like, oh, this is it. Something's going to be good. And then it's kind of lackluster.
Yeah, I wish I could say that I've gotten anything recently that was just amazing.
I'm okay with the new Blink record. There's a few songs where I'm like, okay, these could have went, but it's a little overproduced for me. But that's because Blink's not a overproduced type band. They're just kind of sing shitty band. They've been a sing shitty band their whole life. So like, why suddenly do we need to overproduce everything? But they're 40 something now, so I guess they've decided they want to be overproduced.
Right. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that happens though when you have a band like them, when they decide to get back together, the label throws everything they can at it in order to make it a success. And a lot of the time, overproduced people think is a formula. If we just, do the, double the vocals from here to eternity, we'll end up with,
it just
a hit. So I don't know.
I hate it when the voice becomes like digital sounding. Like it's almost like, did this come out of a keyboard? Like I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, it's chopped and quantized and auto-tuned, and I mean, there's so much unnatural in records nowadays.
Yep.
I don't know.
It's kind of
I'm
depressing.
Going to start sounding like an old man in a second.
We're going to sound
kids in their music nowadays.
And then we'll have Jack White come in with all the analog equipment.
Right.
But
I think it's funny that we're back in a singles world where people don't buy albums anymore.
Yeah, well, people don't buy anything now. Like that's the weird thing.
Yeah, true that.
It's like people buy vinyl or they buy nothing. It seems like at this point.
Right.
And it's an interesting dynamic considering the fact that vinyl production was down to the point where these factories are backed up for like months and now sometimes years, and there's enough money in it now that people are trying to open factories right here in America to produce more vinyl. I think that's an interesting like turnabout.
Yeah, I've read some stuff, and apparently there's actually factories with gear still sitting in it. It's just never sold off. So people are buying the properties, and the presses and stuff are still in the rooms.
Yep.
They've just got to find guys that can maintain the gear. And most of those guys are now like 60, 70 years old.
It's if you watch the Super Suck Hour, they talked to the guy from Sidekick Labs who basically did that for like card printing and all that kind of stuff. And the way he talks about having to learn about all those machines and all that kind of stuff, it's a really interesting listen if anybody out there hasn't heard that. But it'd be a similar thing with these vinyl record producing machines as well.
Right on.
So, but back to the art news. I think that's everything I had. Do you have anything specific that you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
We talked about the show. We talked about Comic-Con.
Yep.
Trying to think if there was anything else going on. Because Comic-Con's one weekend, my show's the following weekend.
Yep. So yeah, Comic-Con takes place October 6th through the 9th, I believe, is the last day. If you want to check out Scott or anything else that's at the Tenacious Toys booth, that is booth number 309. Do you know a specific time or day that you'll be there, like signing or anything? Or
I'm actually going to be there pretty much every day for the whole thing.
Okay, well then, no worries. Stop by whenever to see Scott.
Yeah, I'll be around.
Okay,
I will be around.
I'll also plug the show again. That is Fantastic Universe at Guzu Gallery in Austin, Texas, with the opening reception taking place Friday, October 14th from 7 to 10 p.m. With Scott performing live. So people that may not have caught the very beginning of this, now you know. Scott's going to be there performing music live. So that is, should we call this like the return of Scott or something? Like,
sure. Yeah. It's like the Scott experience.
Yeah. The return of Scott. I like that.
Yeah, the return of Scott.
So, but if you happen to be out in Austin, Texas, there on that weekend, or the show goes through November 1st, make sure to stop in and check it out. As you heard, 83 pieces. A lot of pieces. And from what I've seen, looks really good.
Thanks,
And hopefully, while you guys are getting ready, if you want to vote before next Monday, make sure to head over to the designertoyawards.com and check out all the categories. Specifically, make sure to take a look at Best Custom, and if you feel so inclined, give Scott a vote. It's a good-looking piece in a field of good pieces. So it really everything. Like I looked at a lot of the Designer Toy Awards this year, just looking at the nominations and whatnot, and there are a lot of good stuff in there. I feel bad for those panel members because that's going to be some hard topics. Fan voting wise, check out all the other folks, including myself. You can vote for me, best blog if you want. If not, vote for everybody else. That's fine too. But if you want to check out Scott, where can they find you, Scott? On Instagram, Twitter, internets, wherever you want to send them.
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter, it's Force of Dorkness, no S, no F. So it's the Irish version of my name. Otherwise, website, www.forcesofdarkness.com.
Awesome. Make sure to check it out. You can keep up with everything that Scott is doing via his Instagram or his website. And, always give him a follow. He's always up to something interesting, some sort of interesting work. Not only just his toys, but also his day job. So it's fun to keep up with him, see what's going on and what he's doing. But I guess we'll wrap up the show. This is Travis Likens from UrbanVinylDaily.com, where you can check out all kinds of our postings, things that we're talking about daily, like art, toys, soft vinyl, street art, anything else that catches our eye. You can also check out our weekly wrap-ups via our YouTube channel. You can subscribe so you don't miss the latest ones. That is youtube.com/UrbanVinylDaily. Or you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram at UrbanVinylDaily. If you have a topic or you want to see somebody that we can talk to or interview, make sure to send that over to urbanvinyldaily@gmail.com, and we'll try to see what we can do as far as getting people on the show or talk about a specific subject that you would like to hear about. So, as always, I'm Travis. Have a great Designer Toy Day. Hey everyone, this is Travis Likens from Token Nerd Podcast, and I'm here today to tell you something about sponsorship. That's right, Token Nerd now has a sponsor. The fine folks at TenaciousToys.com, your source for designer toys, pop vinyl, original art, and more, are now our sponsor. And guess what? As a part of that, you can get 10% off your next order at TenaciousToys.com by entering the code TOKEN10 at checkout. That's right, 10% off. And not only are they giving you this code, they're also going to be sponsoring many of our Token Nerd giveaways in the next coming months. So make sure to follow us at token_nerd on Instagram to catch our latest giveaways.